Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for being with us. I have two questions pertaining to insider trading. Like my colleague, Mr. Lynch, I'm working on a bill that takes a slightly different approach. And my two questions are this. First, there's some ambiguity in the press reporting about the SEC's beliefs around the implications of the Second Circuit's Newman decision, Law 360. I think they quoted you as saying you've got the ability to adapt. Late January, Southern District prosecutors say they're going to drop some prosecutions, and of course we're hearing lots of talk about the possibility of convictions being overturned. So my question is, question number one is, regardless of the future of the Newman decision, do you think we would be well served, big picture, by clear statutory liability? In other words, a law prohibiting insider trading. Question number one. Question number two, I'll let you divide up the remaining time in terms of how you want to answer these. Question number two, this would be helpful in thinking through the legislation that I'm working on. How does the SEC think about the threshold between civil and criminal liability? I guess the right way to ask that is, when do you and how do you take the decision to refer a case like this to the DOJ for criminal prosecution?
First, let me just comment on the impact of Newman. I think it's fair to say it's a very significant decision, and it will impact certain of our cases. Whatever has been reported about our views, it's very significant. It also, though, as I've said before, does not mean that we don't have insider trading cases. We brought cases against 16 defendants since Newman, and we will continue to do that. We will work within the confines of Newman. We have a lower standard of proof on the civil side, where we have to show negligence by knowledge of a tippee, and so that helps. We have other circuits we can go to. So there are ways we can deal with Newman, and I think courts may well distinguish the facts on Newman as they did in the last couple of weeks in the Southern District. So that's just our views on Newman. And we filed an amicus brief. The rehearing is still pending, and so obviously whatever happens on that will impact our views. As for the views on legislation, I think that obviously is a decision for the Commission to make about what their position is on legislation, and they have not taken a position yet. What we have said, and we will continue to do, is we are happy to supply technical expertise as you and others work on bills. And I think, as Chair White said last week, and I think this remains our overriding view, strong insider trading laws are critical to the markets. And we think that's important, and we think that is critical. And so that remains our overriding goal, is making sure that insider trading laws are strong and that people have confidence in the markets. Now, as to the question about civil and criminal.
Can I stop you there? Because, of course, some might argue that there are no insider trading laws, that you rely on anti-fraud provisions. So can I interpret what you just said as encouragement that perhaps we should do away with some of the ambiguity emergent from the way these cases have been prosecuted?
No, I think I'm saying it's really up to the Commission, and they haven't expressed a view on this, and I don't want to be interpreted one way or the other on this. I think 10b-5 does prohibit insider trading, as the case law has shown. It's deceptive conduct, and it's illegal under 10b-5. So that's really what I was saying. And just on the civil criminal question that you asked, obviously violations of the securities laws, the thing that makes it criminal is intentional conduct, where we can show intentional conduct beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what makes it criminal. Obviously, every violation of securities law could be criminal if it's done intentionally, and we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And so in insider trading cases, what we do, we often work with criminal authorities as well. They have tools that aren't available to us, including undercover operations and the threat of jail and those kinds of things. And the question about whether something goes criminal versus civil is often a question of the evidence. Typically, you'll have a cooperator in a criminal case, or you'll have a recording, or you'll have some sort of definitive evidence that can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. In our civil cases, we often have circumstantial evidence. You see somebody trading right before an announcement. You see them getting a call from an insider right before they trade. You see evidence of suspicious trading where they're trading 2/3 of their net worth right before an announcement. They have a relationship with somebody who's an insider. So there's lots of circumstantial type evidence that shows it, and we think that can prove it by a preponderance of the evidence, but not always is that sufficient to show beyond a reasonable doubt.
Last question. Newman hinged on the knowledge of the tippee, of the tipper's personal gain and the existence of that personal gain. Do you think that the tippee's knowledge of the possibility of personal gain on the part of tipper, do you think that that is a sort of an essential feature to liability of the tippee?
Well, that's what Newman says, and we had previously, our view was that it wasn't. But, you know, the Southern District didn't appeal that portion of the Newman case, didn't seek rehearing on that portion of the Newman case, and so I think it will stand. And so Newman, at least in the Second Circuit, governs there. As I mentioned, the way we deal with that is we have a lower standard of proof on that. We just have to show that the tippee should have known that the tipper had a personal benefit. And that gives us an ability to show, for example, that the nature of the information was such that the tippee should have realized that it came from somebody who had personal benefit.
Thank you, Mr. Resnick. The gentleman's time has expired.